Hi guys, welcome back to the Pageant project. I wanted to address this week's video to you super competitive girlies out there. Now, when I say super competitive, what I mean is people who, and this won't be all of you, so if this is not you, I don't mean to be insensitive, but you'll find out soon enough, and just you can ignore this week's video and wait for next week's. But you'll know that you're super competitive when you view first runner-up as the first loser. Okay, I know that's pretty brutal, and I don't often language things that way, especially in public. But if that's you, this week's video is for you. And I was thinking about what I wanted to do with this week, and I have some friends who are entering big pageant systems. They're highly competitive, and my belief is they have a genuine chance of winning, of doing really, really well. And these are some of the biggest pageants in the world. I also have a couple of new clients that I'm working with, and the same goes for them. I've mentioned briefly in the past the importance of self-awareness, and look, as a tennis coach, let me just give you this analogy because this will feel less personal. As a tennis coach, one of the things, in fact, this goes for modeling, maybe, I don't know, pageantry, there are such things as scouts, but there literally are talent scouts. I know this to be the case for tennis and modeling. Tennis, very often when they are looking to give away college scholarships for tennis players, they will send talent scouts around to matches, to smaller local tournaments. And if they like what they see, they might come up to you after the match and they'll say, hey, I'm from maybe such and such college, and would you be interested in coming to play for us in return for a scholarship? All this to say, what are they looking for? Talent, right? Someone who looks like they have the game, they have the natural ability, and some of it's a lot of hard work. I'm not dismissing that, please don't misunderstand me. But they're looking for someone who has it. Now, whatever it is. The same applies in pageants, right? You just know when you meet certain people, they have it. And you also know, unfortunately, that some people simply don't have it. Now, that is not to say that hard work can't remedy that. But as a tennis coach, you would always have one eye. There would always be this precocious young kid who would come on the court, blow everyone away with their precocious talent, and it was God-given. It wasn't that they had practiced so hard for it. I'm sure there was practice involved, but there are certain things that you just can't teach. And again, the same is in pageants. But you need to be self-aware, because I'll put it bluntly, not everyone has it. Again, hard work can get you really far, but as a coach, at least as a tennis coach, you are always looking for the person who had, the player who had the talent and the work ethic. It's not mutually exclusive. I'm just trying to think of that saying, that work, like hard work, beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. That's true in the long term, but that doesn't mean, that kind of makes you think, oh, it's mutually exclusive. They're not. You can have talent and work hard, and those very often go on to be the legends of the game, or the legends of pageants, or legends of whatever system or whatever industry. So you need to have the self-awareness to know where you're at. If you're going to be super competitive, it's doubly important that you really know where you're at. I've had this sort of quite uncomfortable experiences of working with people over the years, certain people, and quite frankly, they're deluded. I ask them, they've never done a pageant before, they may not have done any modeling before, and I don't know, they watched America's Next Top Model. I ask them, how would you rate your modeling skills or your runway skills out of 10? And they're like, oh, 20. And I take one look, and I'm not an expert at modeling by any means, but I take one look at their performance, and it's not 10, and it's not close to 10. It it's probably more like a 3, right? It looks like almost a toddler and tiara, but in an adult's body, and it's all over the place. There's so much that needs to be worked on, and yet this person is thinking they're God's greatest gift on the runway. You cannot afford to be deluded if you're going to do what I'm going to suggest. So if you're competitive, you need that self-awareness to know which system should I enter so that I have a genuine chance of winning. Now, that all being said, I was thinking, I was ruminating in my head. I have these various people who really want to win. And I do think they have it. But as is very often in the case with high-end coaching, no two clients are the same. Some need to work on their mindset. And even if you say, okay, everyone needs to work on mindset, different people have different mindset issues, right? Someone might be dealing with imposter syndrome. Some people might be dealing with trauma from their childhood, their upbringing, etc., etc. But what I was thinking about was, where would I start? If there's one place in common that I would start with any client who was super competitive, wasn't going there just to make up numbers, and really had the talent, the look, the everything to win, where would I start? And here's where the slightly out of the box thinking comes into it. Most of you, when you're beginning a pageant run, right? Maybe you've had a sabbatical or whatever, but you're making your title run. So you've got your pageant, maybe you've enrolled, you know the dates or you know the rough dates, and you've begun your prep. You're probably a few months out, maybe at tops you're a year out, somewhere in that vicinity. Most people just start thinking about, what do I need to do? They start making lists, they start getting workout plans, they bring up the platform or they start a new platform, you know, the whole kit and caboodle. Before though, so remember, I was thinking, what can I do? Where's the common place that I would start with clients such as this? And what I noticed is that they get really busy. And frankly, they get really excited. But I get worried because I feel there's no unifying direction they're going in. I mean, okay, they have a vision and they have a goal, which is to win whatever it is. But aside from that, they haven't really given any strategic thought to it. And they've just started being really busy. And as their coach, I get worried because I go, wow, you're really busy, but you seem to have missed out a giant chunk, right? You've missed out this part, or you've missed out that part. Maybe your runway is really good, but your interview skills are really not up to scratch. But people tend to, when they get excited and they want to start pageant prep, they tend to start on the areas where they feel most confident already. So they're good at runway. Next thing you know, they're doing their pageant title run and they're in the gym or we're at the dance studio and they're practicing their pageant walk 5 times a week, 7 times a week. And I'm just looking at this going, I know you're working hard and I love you, so I want what's best for you. You don't need to be spending this much time in the dance studio working on your walk, right? You need to be take half the time away from your runway because you're already amazing at it. And for God's sake, spend it on your interview, because that's where you really, I'm not going to say suck, but sometimes that's the case. There was a case of a close friend of mine was getting ready to compete in a national pageant, a big one. And she was already in phenomenal shape, like really phenomenal shape. Like part of it's genetics, right? But she was spending like 2 sessions at the gym every day, not 1, 2. And each session was a couple of hours. And it got to the point I was catching up with her and she said, yeah, I'm got run down, I got sick. I'm like, well, duh, like you're pushing your body to that point in the gym. And I got nothing against that, but that's not where you needed to be working, right? You needed to be working somewhere else. Now, again, I talked about the importance of self-awareness, but sometimes we don't have people who can really fill in the gaps for us, and we're having to do things ourselves. So here's what I'd say. before you've entered the system, or even if you have entered the system, I want you to look at things differently. Rather than going, what do I need to do? Rather than asking myself, what do I need to do? Think of it differently. And I'm always about doing things different, because if you do what everyone else has done, you get the results that everyone else has gotten. And most people are not winning a pageant. So let's think differently. If this genuinely was a job interview, what would you do? All right, you say, come up with my resume. Great, but what are you going to put in your resume? Oh, well, I'll structure it like this, X, Y, Z. I'll put my references, I'll list my work experience, I'll list my education, then I'll list my referees. Maybe I'll attach a cover letter. Okay, great. But where are you applying for the job? Who are you applying with? And surely, depending on which job you're going for, which company you're going for, surely you would want to find out at least a little bit about the job, the business, what is their goal, what is their vision, what are they trying to do, so that you can tailor your resume, tailor your paperwork, and tailor your interview. But this is where I see most of you get super busy and you don't do that part. You just treat every pageant like it's the same. You just start getting really busy, scheduling your workout, scheduling your coaching, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you need the direction first, not last. You don't want to be addressing the gaps in your prep 1 month out from pageant and then going, oh my God, I didn't work on this, and beginning to panic. So let's bring this home. What I want you to do is, whichever pageant you've entered or you're looking at entering, ask yourself, what are they looking for? Now, if you're entering a local, if you're entering a state, you kind of have to think of what each level is looking for, because it might be different. What I'm going to say is, if you're entering a local or state, remember the ultimate goal, if you're super competitive, right, is nationals or maybe internationals. So do be mindful of that. But let me give you some examples. All right, let's take two of the newer systems, Miss All American, Miss Volunteer America, or the teen divisions of those. These are newer systems. Now, they have the advantage, which not every new system does, of being created by people who already are incredibly well connected in the pageant industry. That being said, they are still looking for people who can help them grow their business, right? These newer pageants. So what do you think they're looking for? Well, I know for a fact that if you can come up with some strategic brand, like national level brand partnerships, that's really going to set you apart, right? So let's say, for example, you somehow have an in at a travel agency or one of the airlines themselves. So let's say you have an in at a giant, sports company or photography company. If you can bring to the table, right, you as a title holder, and remember, you're super competitive and you want to win. You go into that interview or in your paperwork, you say, well, as part of my preparation, I have set up a strategic partnership with so-and-so airlines or so-and-so travel agency. And if I was to be crowned your next Miss whatever it is, I will be able to travel for the next 52 weeks, the entirety of my reign, for free, and it won't cost you a thing, right? And by the way, what I want to do with that is go to the 52 states and XYZ, whatever your plan is, right? This is the level of strategic thinking that I want you to give at least a little bit of thought to. Don't just make yourself busy, make yourself productive. That is the difference between someone who just goes every year and they're working hard and then, they're never really going to win unless they're the last person left. And they're nice people. Please don't get it wrong. I'm not saying they're not nice people, but they're not going about this the strategic way. You might look at, for example, Miss USA, which is much more established, but Miss USA is going through a rebrand. We have the new director, we've got Tom, and for example, one of the things I know he wants to bring back is red carpet appearances, right? And there's a whole bunch of different initiatives he's bringing in, which I think are great because I think it's modernizing Miss USA. And by the way, I think a lot of the girls who competed at Miss USA last year were caught unawares. they were preparing for a system that basically doesn't exist anymore, because they were competing with knowledge or with opinions or with coaching that was getting them ready for a pageant that might have existed 20 years ago. And I think it really showed. And I can say that because I know one of the things that Tom changed, this is Tom Brodeur, by the way, Thom, one of the things he changed, and I know this because I worked a mock interview with probably 10 of the women, he did away with their paperwork. And what he said instead was, create a 2-minute video. When you walk in the interview room, we'll play your video, and then the judges will ask questions based on the video. Now, for one, think that's a great idea. But I was quite surprised by how many of the women just were thrown into a complete panic about that, because they had been getting ready for paperwork, and then I'm going to change the paperwork, and I'm going to use the paperwork to control the questions, all of which makes sense, right? But again, we have to think strategically. And by the way, if you're competitive and you want to take a big pageant out, one of the things you need, and I don't need to tell you this, is a high stress tolerance. What that means, when everyone else is freaking the F out, you stay calm. In fact, the freakier it gets, the calmer you get. That's a really good sign, and that's a really good quality. But Miss USA, let's say it's not a new pageant, so maybe strategic, brand partnerships and travel and things like that, maybe they've got that on lock. But let's say that Tom wants to make Miss USA a household name again. And one of the ways they're going to do it, make Miss USA a genuine A-list celebrity. One of the ways he wants to do that is red carpet appearances at high quality events. Okay, not just some local show that no one's ever heard about, but I don't know, Cannes Film Festival, or the next, Marvel superhero movie or something like that. Now you go, okay, well, how can I position myself in that way, or how can I be strategic about it? Well, can you approach talent agencies or modeling agencies or acting agencies and try to create a strategic brand partnership with agencies such that every state title holder, every USA state title holder gets, some sort of scholarship or partnership with that agency to do a portfolio or to do some acting classes, right? Which is really good for interview, by the way. That's another strategic out of the box type of thinking. But why not do something like that, right? And by the way, if your brain is not that great at lateral thinking and out of the box thinking, this doesn't mean, by the way, you're not intelligent. This is a specific type of thinking. If you're not that great at it, use ChatGPT. I know I keep banging on about this, and I feel like I'm slowly making inroads. But guys, you've got something in the palm of your hand now that's for free to a large extent, and it literally knows everything in the universe. And you're not going to use it? And it's connected to the internet as well. So use that to help you if you're not so good with the lateral thinking, the strategic thinking. But my point is, this is nothing to do with me telling you, you should do this for your brand, or you should do this for your platform. You should use this technique in your interview, or you should wear this outfit, or you should walk like this, or do this talent. I want you to be strategic first. And at least the first question you should ask yourself is, okay, what's my brand? What am I bringing to the table? And as I've said, look at the pageant you're entering. You know those Venn diagrams that have 2 circles? So do some research into your pageant and find out what they're looking for. And of course, some of it you might have to give an educated guess, right? This is the pageant. The other circle, what you bring to the table. Self-awareness is key, right? So 2 circles, what the pageant is looking for. What do you bring to the table? What are we looking for with a Venn diagram? The intersection between those 2 circles. By the way, if you're listening to this, you might want to watch this if you don't know what a Venn diagram is, although I'm just drawing circles in the air. I should be in front of a whiteboard or something. What we are looking for is the intersection between what you bring to the table and what the pageant wants. By the way, how do you know that you've been smart with your pageant selection? Which is when those 2 circles are exactly the same. When everything that the pageant wants is everything you bring to the table. How do we know you're in the wrong pageant? When what the pageant wants and what you bring to the table have no overlap whatsoever. Now, if that's happened to you and now you're beginning to panic and you go, oh my God, well, I've entered the wrong pageant. Well, I mean, you could change the pageant you're entering, but if you're really fixated on winning a specific pageant and you actually have the wherewithal to take it out, right? As I said, there's some people who have it and some people who don't. Then you've got more work to do. Let's put it that way. It's possible. I'm never going to say it's impossible. If you're competitive especially, you'll do whatever it takes. But you've got more work to do because you're going to have to change what you offer and change what you bring to the table. And I don't want to hear anything about, oh, but that's not me anymore. I just be yourself. This is why that's such BS advice. Because as a competitive person, what are you always looking to do every day? You're looking to improve. Okay, well then that literally by definition means the person I am tomorrow is not the same person as I was today and not the same person as I was yesterday. I certainly hope it's not, otherwise I'm not improving. So get it out of this head that, oh, I just need to be myself. That is, okay, this is going to be brutal language, but that is the language of losers, right? Just be yourself. And when I say losers, I know that's really harsh. I really probably shouldn't say that. But if you just want to go and have fun, just go and have fun. But then don't complain when you don't win. If you are really serious about taking out a big pageant, I need you to get that straight in your head. It's not about being yourself. It's all about what you bring to the table and how you present that. And by the way, can I just say, if, for example, you have a talent section in your next pageant, and maybe you're known for a dancer, to be a dancer, but you go, you know what? I don't think that's what that system is looking for. I'm going to learn how to play the piano or the fiddle. Or I'm going to learn, I don't know, flame swallowing or baton juggling. Great. If you learn that skill, are you no longer being yourself? Right? If I learn a new skill, if I pick up a new sport, am I no longer being myself? Of course not. You're just adding to who you are. So please get that out of your head. So if the pageant you're entering, what they're looking for and what you bring to the table, there's not a huge amount of overlap, get to work, right? But here's a key, because you've been intelligent and strategic about it, like we've been discussing, you'll now be working on the correct things. So yes, you'll be busy, but more than that, you'll be productive. And that's much more important. In fact, what I'd get you to do is actually take the word busy out of your vocabulary. Because busy means it's activity without result. It's just, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. Great. What was the result? Oh, I don't know. Yeah, maybe you sweated a bit, right? Maybe you got a little bit better at something. But I want you to know, when you're pushing yourself to the extreme, when you're waking up at 4 a.m, I want you to know why you're doing it. And I want you to go, I want you to have the luxury, not the luxury, but I want you to be able to go, I know this is really hard right now, but I know what I want. I know why I want it. And I know this is moving me towards that goal. It's not just meaningless busy work. Again, please don't be the person who just starts doing 100 appearances, but none of them move the needle. Or the person who goes to the gym twice a day, 6 days a week, runs themselves down, and yet their interview is horrific, right? So be strategic about it. Start by looking at what the pageant wants. The next inventory you have to take, you need to know what you bring to the table. Again, self-awareness is key. And then we're looking for the intersection of those two things. The bigger the intersection, the better. If there's no intersection, you've got your work cut out for you. Final thing I want to talk about today, briefly, the different components of your pageant. I really, really want you to think, what is the purpose? What's going to win? What will score me the highest in each component? Why do I say this? Because in interview, a lot of you think, oh, I'm going to learn techniques to answer well and be concise, and I'm going to talk about my talking points. And you go and you start working on all these things. That's never going to win you the interview. The interview is not about you doing techniques. That's a false equivalency. What's interview about? I'm not leaving that room until you know that I'm the best title holder. I'm the best potential title holder for your system. That's where all this strategic thinking comes in, right? If you had those strategic national brand partnerships set up, you bring it to the table at interview. I want you to do that with every component for your next pageant. Don't just think, oh, talent. What's a talent? What's my talent? Oh, I'm dancing. Okay, let's start working on dancing. No. What's the point of talent? Better yet, how can I know that I'm going to win talent? Well, here's a wild guess. I was at Miss Volunteer America last year. One woman out of 50, I assume, because 50 states or whatever it was, one woman out of 50 got a standing ovation. Guess who won talent? The woman who got the standing ovation, right? So rather than just going, oh, well, my talent is ballet, so let's do ballet. Okay, but where are you competing? So what's the audience? What are they going to be likely things they look for, that they enjoy? Can you factor that in, right? But my point is, again, be strategic about it, be intelligent about it. Don't just start working on it, and don't just start rehashing your talent from last year or doing the same one but a different piece. And also don't throw the baby out with the bathwater necessarily and go, well, I did this talent last year, so this year I'm doing a completely different one. That's not the point. The point is you want to win? Okay. What talent do you think will suit this pageant the best, right? Same with interview. You're not going in there to show off your interview techniques. You're going in there to sell yourself and pitch yourself. That is a different world, and you will be working on different skills. That's a big thing, remember. Don't just get busy. Get productive. Be intelligent. When it comes to runway, I mean, you tell me, what's the point of runway? Is it to be a clothes hanger and show how expensive your wardrobe is? No. Is it to show how perfect your pirouettes are? No. What's the point? Runway is a performance, isn't it? And a lot of that is you being able to engage, specifically the judges, right? So, as a silly example, it's not just how you walk. A lot of it's your facial expressions. Also, a lot of it is actually what you wear. Does it complement your personality, your on-stage persona? Does it complement your hair color, your skin tone? You want to think about hair and makeup, not because it's vain, but because that really, really goes a long way to making your performance shine. And if you're super strategic about it, you're going to look up where the pageant is being held. You're going to take your best guess as to what the lighting situation is going to be like, what the backdrop is going to be like, and that's going to inform your choice of outfit, your choice of makeup, your choice of hair. So for example, if it's a really, really dark backdrop, do you want a dark outfit? Maybe not, right? Or at the very least, if you're going to wear a dark outfit, maybe you want some beading on it or some, diamantes on it so it sparkles a bit, because otherwise the background will swallow you up. If the lighting is really, really harsh, really, really intense, your makeup is going to have to compensate for that, because otherwise you'll look very pale and very washed out, and that's not generally what the judges are looking for. So, make this make sense. I'm not going to say, I hope this makes sense. I know it makes sense, because the type of person who's hyper-competitive has a really good chance of winning will already be used to this sort of thinking, or at the very least when I say it, they go, that's the missing piece, right? I've been busy all the other times, but I've never given it strategic thought. I don't want you to be busy, remember. Take that out of your vocabulary. We're going to be productive. But the only way you can do that is by giving it some thought upstream, being strategic. And maybe I can sum it up this way. Ask yourself the right question, or always begin with why, or what's the point? So what's the point of runway? What's the point of talent? What's the point of interview? Interview is the one I've given the most thought, because that's where I work the most. And as I said, interview is not about memorizing your key points. It's about selling yourself. That might sound like a little difference. It's not. You work on completely different skill sets. There are some skills in common, to be sure. You need to be articulate, right? No matter what. But selling yourself and doing what typical pageant coaching would tell you to do in an interview are two completely different things. That's why so many of you work on your interview year after year after year, and you never really seem to move up. You never seem to win your pageant interview. I wonder why that's the case. Could it be you've been working on the wrong things? Could it be you need a different way of thinking about things? Remember, if you're thinking different, it's advantage to you. If you're thinking the same as everyone else, it's a huge disadvantage, because you're blending in, with your competition. That decreases your chances of winning. If you have any questions about this, let me know, reply to this, send me an email. But as I said, this is not for everyone, okay? So please don't say, oh, but a pageant should be looking for this and it should be about the camaraderie and this is what, I get that and I believe that. But at a certain point, there's a certain type of person who's like, you know what? Yeah, all that stuff is cool, that's neat, but I want to win. And frankly, I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm super competitive too. And if I was ever to do anything such as a pageant, you can bet your bottom dollar, I'll be courteous to you. I'm not going to be mean. I'm not going to backstab you. I'm not going to cut your dress. But I'm going in it to win it, right? And I'm going to do whatever it takes. And if that means reinventing myself or learning a new skill or doing something that makes me uncomfortable, even better. Give it to me. I'll eat it up, lap it up. So this probably only applies, this video is only applicable to maybe 5 or 10% of you. But if that's you, I wanted you to know that I got your back because I'm crazy competitive like you. And I wanted to give you something that I think will give you a massive competitive edge. Final piece, it always begins with mindset. Getting this straight, right? Making sure you don't have self-esteem issues, imposter syndrome issues, or if you do, you know how to overcome them, you know how to conquer them, or at the very least, you're making big progress towards overcoming them. Part of mindset, by the way, asking yourself the right questions and being strategic, being intelligent. So always start there. If you want mindset advice, I'd say go get my book on Beginner's Guide to Pageantry. The entire first section is on mindset. And I will say, I know it's called the Beginner's Guide, but I've had a couple of very well-known pageant contestants tell me they bought my book and they're loving it and they wish they'd had it when they started their journey. And these guys are not beginners. They've had state titles, definitely. They've been on the Miss USA stage and been in the top 5. So if they can learn from it, I'm hoping all of you can too. Any questions, let me know. You know where to reach me.